let's go ahead and click on the page 1. And let me zoom out a little bit. And we're going to do the same thing with our text. We're going to use our type tool and select our text and change the color. And I think I will change that to the warm gray. That looks nice. And this little bit of text underneath it, this line, I'm going to select that and I'm going to change it to a lighter color because I can't see that very well. So I'm going to change it to warm gray 1 and see how that looks. Oh, it didn't change. Let's try that again. Select that text and select on warm gray 1. And there we go. Now we can see our text a little bit better. I'm really not sure I like the placement of this bit of text, so I think I'm going to move it up a little bit. So I'm going to use my selection tool, which is the black arrow in our tools palette, and I'm going to shift click on both those text frames, and I'm going to use my shift key and my arrow up and move these text frames up. And I think I might want to make them just a little bit bigger. And we can manually change the size of our text by using our type tool, selecting the text. I have it set at 93.75 points. I think I'm going to change that to an even 100. And of course the text disappears because it's larger than our text frame that we have. So I'm going to pull out the text frame and drag out one of the handles. Oops, not stretch it out. I'm going to drag out one of the handles on the sides until I see gift voucher appear. And I'm going to pull it all the way to the edge of our document so I know that it's centered in there. And I'm going to use my shift key and my arrow to move it up just a little bit. Alright, and I need to move this text frame above this other one so I can see it. And I'm going to click on the bottom text frame and I'm going to do the same thing. But this time I'm going to increase the size of my text frame because I know that if I increase the font size, it's going to disappear. So I'm just going to go ahead and increase it, make that text frame a little larger in anticipation for that. Select the text, and instead of 12 point, I'm going to change it to 14 point. Alright, and I'm going to bring my text frames in because I don't need them to be quite that wide. Alright, and then I'm going to center this text under the word gift voucher. Alright, I like that, and I think I'm going to select those two text frames and using my shift key and my down arrow just bring it down just a little bit. Alright, now I have a placeholder graphic for a logo. We're just going to go ahead and select that and delete it. So now we're going to create a new graphic frame. So I'm going to click and drag the graphic frame onto my document and go to File, to Place, and I'm going to look for my logo, and I have a PNG saved, and anything that's a PNG or PSD, a Photoshop file, that has a transparent background on it will appear as a logo with a transparent background on your document. You can also import an EPS, a vector EPS of your logo, or go into Illustrator and copy and paste a vector logo into InDesign. But for now, we're just going to place a PNG file of my logo. I'm going to click on it and click Open. And now my logo is placed inside that graphic frame. And it doesn't quite fit, so I'm going to go to Object, to Fitting, to fit frame proportionally. And it's still a little too small, so I'm going to go to Object, Select, Content, and make that a little bit smaller. So I'm going to drag in a handle using the Selection tool and make my image of my logo just a little bit smaller and fit it inside that graphic frame. Now there's not a lot of contrast in this particular logo, but I can easily change that and put in a different logo. What I'm going to do instead is go into Illustrator, and I already have a file with my logo on it, and I have a vector version of that logo. I'm going to click and select my logo, copy by going to Edit to Copy, and going back into Adobe InDesign, delete this graphic frame because I don't need it, and go to File, Edit to Paste. All right, now I have a vector file of my logo in here. And again, I still don't have enough contrast between these two colors, but this is a vector file, so I can use the swatch palette to change the color of my logo. With the the fill swatch selected in my swatch palette, I'm going to go and select warm gray. And now I can see my logo a lot more clearly on my gift voucher. And I think it's just a little too large for this particular design, so I'm going to select my logo and reduce the size. So I'm going to hold down my shift key, drag a handle inwards, and reduce the size of my logo. So now it's not so overpowering, it's more of an afterthought, but at least it's still there identifying who I am. I can also move my logo from page 1 to page 2. I'm going to click on my logo and hit Command X to cut, or I can also go to Edit to cut, double click on page 2 in my Pages panel, and go to Edit to paste. And now my logo is placed on page 2, and instead of putting it on top of a photograph, I'm going to move it over to the side of this document, and I'm hitting W so I can see my guides and have a better idea of where to place this logo. You can also go to View to Screen Mode to Normal, and it will bring back guides and bleeds. So I'm going to move my logo over and put it right on the edge of that safe area. And hit W to see a preview. And I think I'm going to move all of this content over so that it's not so close to my logo, and I want to balance out this area, and everything's just too close this way. So I'm going to hit W to bring back to normal view, and outside this, with my selection tool, I'm going to select each one of these text frames and the stroke, and I'm just going to use my shift key and my left arrow and move it over. And I'm just going to kind of eye the distance here, make sure I have enough distance between this text frame and my logo and this edge of the safe area and this other text frame. So I'm going to move it back over to the right just a little bit, and I think it's centered pretty well. And I'm going to deselect by moving my mouse over to the white area of my document. And again, I'm going to go to preview mode. So go to View, Screen Mode to Preview. And I think we have a very good layout for our document. And if you have a before image and you want to use a series of images of the same woman, I unfortunately do not have a before image of her, so I'm going to use somebody else's before picture just to demonstrate how to do this. So I'm going to click on the image box, go to File, to Place, and select a before picture. And now that it's placed in there, I cannot see the word before very well because this particular image doesn't have enough contrast because she's wearing a kind of a medium color shirt. So I'm going to click on my text tool, the T tool, the type tool, and select the text in there and change the color to paper white. And again, make sure that your fill box is selected on your swatches, and click paper white. And go to the selection tool to select and deselect the text. And now that is pretty simply how you can change the text and background colors and add swatches to your templates. So let's go ahead and move on to editing text and changing fonts in our 4th tutorial in our series for InDesign CS.